Hello, and welcome to the Bardic INNspiration.
Hello and welcome back to Bardic INNspiration. On today's episode, we're going to be talking about the Genies, which include the Dao, the Ifriti, the Jinn, and the Merid. The Dao, have any of you guys used them? Like, what are they? What elemental plane are they?
They are from the elemental plane of Earth. In my mind, they are very calm, cool-headed. In a way, they kind of remind me as if you could imagine dwarves, but more stubborn and with innate magic powers.
Okay, so specifically, they are from the plane of Earth. What kind of powers do they have? Do they, like, elemental demise? Actually, all of them have some sort of elemental demise, don't they?
Yes, they all do. So basically, if any sort of genie dies, so in this case with Dao, they all have an elemental demise where their body will basically disintegrate and it will disappear away in some elemental form. So in the case of a Dao, when it disintegrates, it kind of just turns into like this powdered like crystal that's on the ground. And then any like equipment that it has will also collapse to the ground with it. But basically, you're never going to find like a dead body of a genie, so you can't like resurrect it through normal means.
Right, it just fades away.
Exactly.
You
can't use like a revivify or anything.
Right.
I imagine that dead dust, though, is some pretty potent magical components for wizards or the like.
Yeah.
Oh, that'd be interesting. Just crafting items from the crystals that it...
Well, yeah, either crafting items from the dead, crystals from the Dao or the like, from the other genies, or using them to empower your spell. So, Morden's Earthly Grasp, I think is the spell.
Yeah.
Make it stronger, Using the ashes or the crystals from a Dao, perhaps maybe it bumps it up a spell level.
Mm-hmm. See,
just using the extra components.
My thought was when saying elemental demise, I almost thought the way you were starting to describe it, that when they died, that they would explode, much like a method.
Yeah.
And my thought was it would be more like when they die, that a lot of their magical essence is more or less expelled out in some sort of elemental force.
That'd be kind of cool. Like instead of like it turns into crystals, it causes an earthquake. Or, like a whirlwind for the Jinn, or a firestorm, something along those lines.
What about the Dao? It still explodes in the crystals, but every time the crystals hits the earth, it shoots out spires of earth.
It creates earth from it.
It just shoots
columns
out,
of it.
Not like very, kind of almost dangerous terrain.
Basically to show the fact that it still has a very magical essence, and once it dies, it's got to go somewhere.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Now, do the genies return to the elemental plane after they die, or do they just die?
They just die.
Okay.
Poof. Yeah, when they die, doesn't matter where they are, they're just dead. They don't go back and regenerate or anything.
Okay.
When you kill them, that's pretty much it.
Okay. How long can genies live normally? Do they have an age?
Not that I saw.
Not that I'm aware of either. 52. I would imagine they could live for just any natural or unnatural period of time. They just live until they're killed.
They are nature itself.
In some instances, I would assume are likely. Or in addition to death, they could also be captured, used for their powers. Mm-hmm. So.
Now, getting back into the Dao, how I said they were very down to earth, very much like dwarves, but more stubborn. I don't mean dwarves as in, we're very clan oriented and everything. I mean dwarves as in they have a fancy for precious metals and earths, and the very old stereotypical idea that dwarves were slavers, because the Dao are very proud slavers. They trade for slaves with whatever they can, they have money or the like. So the fact that if you see a Dao, or maybe there's a slave operation going on, a Dao would be a great boss for this operation. Somehow he's trapped on the prime material plane
and he's trying to make a business.
Well, maybe not in the business. Maybe he's using these slaves to mine out precious metals that would help him return back home, or they're mining out these tunnels to find that rift in the plains so that he can return home.
Okay.
Now, you said that they are slavers, so as far as the monster manual, all of the genies have a different alignment. The Dao have neutral evil, so like they're not chaotic, they're just straight, oh, we're just going to take over. You know, there's no good about it, there's no bad about it, just
do.
Yep, you are.
Well, they're very focused. Their goal is a lot about growth of like their own power. And they're not like you said, they're neutral evil, so they're not lawful. Like they don't abide by like some sort of rules or a set system or anything. Yeah. So they're totally okay with ideas such as like betrayal or just doing things to get what they want. But they also have a plan. They're not just kind of going around causing mayhem for the sake of mayhem. Like they do have a goal in mind. Right. Just not necessarily one that involves around a structure of some sort.
Now, would you say that the Dao are greedy?
I would agree with that, absolutely. I could see, kind of like what you were saying, a campaign where they're either like in charge of like a mining operation, or maybe they're part of like a group of them, or like one of their plans is to basically like destroy like a section of world, essentially, just so they can mine for those resources, so to say. Now, another cool thing about them, though, which kind of goes with this, is they do have another ability, which is Earthglide. So they don't necessarily need to, like, create holes. They can actually just move through Earth.
Much like Earth Elementals.
Yeah, almost as if it's like water, essentially. So they can just move through it. So they don't necessarily need to, like, create tunnels or anything to mine. They could just go down there and grab it themselves.
I kind of imagine that as an inner dimension between the elemental plane of Earth and the elemental or the prime plane or wherever they're at, and it's kind of that in between space where so they don't really go into the Earth. It's kind of disappear into a portal that's kind of in between the two, and then they come out from another.
I'm kind of thinking more like they're dirt. They turn to dirt that just slips right through everything.
Yeah, kind of like a ghost, or I guess that would make sense too. I don't know. That's the way I kind of always thought of it. So, is there anything else that they're kind of more focused on? Maybe combat prowess, or
Well, they do have the simple maul as a weapon. They have their fists. The spells that they can cast are different than any other genies, of course. They have like pass wall or move earth, stone shape, stuff like that. That's more controlled to their element, which is, I mean, of course that would be something they would have, but puts them aside from any others. Do we want to delve into like how we would use them, or would we like to use that as a later thing as how?
No, let's go ahead and kind of separate into it. I do want to point out that I think it's hilarious and makes sense that the Dao are immune to being petrified. They can't be turned to stone.
That makes sense.
Because they are the lords of stone.
I don't know. I'm kind of thinking my idea that just kind of popped in my head is that the possibility of with the relation in some sort of means that between a Dao and a dwarf and similarities and a Dao would try to enslave a dwarf civilization.
Sure.
And try and use them as a resource to gain some sort of means of power.
Or possibly a Durgar.
I was going to say that they already are slaves. They're already great miners.
Right.
And they're, I mean...
Smurf Neblin, the deep gnomes.
Smurf Neblin, yeah.
Yeah. Something like that. Yeah, definitely. Because it goes in line with their slavers. So, you know, they come to this plane, take over the earth, you know.
Literally.
Yeah.
If I were to do it, I would probably... some form of... I like the idea of accidentally stumbling into the other planes.
Okay.
So maybe the party is going through the Underdark, or they're helping out a dwarven mine clear its mine. And then all of a sudden this tunnel just keeps going and going and going. And eventually it's like, well, maybe we should turn around. Well, they go to turn around, and now they're being ambushed by other creatures. Not necessarily the Dao themselves, but they're being ambushed by other creatures, say gargoyles, or what's that one, the
the
Galabdur. So those are both of the prime earth kind of sense. So the party gets captured by them, whether they try and fight or they escape. they stumble across maybe a grand city, and they learn, okay, well, crap, it's like every denizen that belongs to the earth, whether it's dwarf slaves, Herfnebelin slaves, gorgons, or not gorgons, Medusas, gargoyles, there's sentries for it,
Basilisks.
Basilisks, yeah, this sort of things. Cockatrice is your little farming foods that kind of run around. I can see that kind of happening with this Dao. It's just
I don't think I'd ever want to go to this place. It sounds awful.
Well, any plane of existence that's not the prime would be pretty dangerous for a normal person.
Fair.
Yeah. And stumbling there on accident, it would be even that more difficult, because then you're not prepared. Even if you escape from this, okay, well, which tunnel leads which way?
Alright.
Kind of like that idea.
Another thing with them mechanically, which is what I like if you ever run them in combat, is that as far as like the actual combat is concerned, like you said, they pretty much use a maul. Part of the ability with that maul is they can knock enemies prone. So their whole idea is to pretty much just deal a lot of damage with a heavy weapon. Their spells, however, which is interesting about Daos in particular, is, like we said, they can use like Stone Shape, Move Earth, and everything. And so one of the things they can also do, because they also have Wall of Stone, they can use their magic to manipulate the battlefield, essentially. So, say, for example, the Dao is in a fight with a group of adventurers, and, say, they have, 2 fighters and, a couple of mages or something. So what the Dao could do is throw up a wall of stone, split that party in half, so you have, the casters on one side and the fighters on the other. It can move through Earth, so it could just move through either side of that wall, and the party is now split off. So say it wants to go for those mages, it could throw up the wall, trap the fighters on one side, go through the wall and start attacking the mages. Fighters now have to spend a turn or two trying to get to the other side. A similar idea with that, I had to actually check this before I mentioned it, is Move Earth is another spell they have. Kind of works the same way. They can actually manipulate terrain, essentially. They can quite literally shape the terrain how they want. So you can keep moving the battlefield, and that way you can keep making it difficult for the party, because now they have to, in addition to thinking, how are we going to kill this Dao, they also have to start thinking to themselves, how are we just going to make it to the Dao or to each other?
What about Move Earth moving the wall itself? So going back to your example of the separating the party, okay, well, how about moving that wall to slowly decrease the space that these creatures have?
Yeah, they could do that too. The only thing, the downside of Move Earth is it doesn't move the terrain fast enough to deal damage necessarily.
Yeah.
So.
Well, I was thinking more about
I get what you mean.
Trapping. Okay, so you got your 2 casters. Well, you get on the other side, and now you're fighting caster 1-on-1. They're always in melee range, and they're not going to throw up a fireball. Not a wise one, anyways.
I think that's the way that they enslave people.
Yeah,
is to separate them from a party and
separate them and
bind them.
Because I don't know if it would be enough to, if they could move the earth enough to restrain these creatures, so basically pin them to the wall. But I could see it moving and basically reducing the space so that they either have to fight it 1-on-1, or they're basically now succumb to the rest of the Jin spells. Or sorry, the Dao spells.
The Dao spells.
Speaking of the Jin,
let's delve into the Air Genie.
I love Jin. Just because they are the iconic, they are what you think of when you think of Aladdin's genie, or the genie in a bottle with the 3 wishes. And now, to say with the 3 wishes, not every genie can cast them. Only the princes of genies. So the princes and the royalty of genies have that much power to cast said spells. The Jinn are the chaotic good. They would probably be, if a party is looking for a genie for some whatever reason, quest or the like, my advice as a random NPC would be to seek out a Jinn. Not to say that they won't screw you over in a little way, but they are more likely to do you more good than harm. What do you guys think?
They're the iconic genie. I mean, when you think of genie, you think of, I'm going to rub this lamp and a genie's going to come out, or a Jinn. So
I don't know. If not all of them can cast Wish, I don't know if I'd want to rub that lamp. I might just try to kill me.
XP, Jacob. XP.
But risk of death.
Maybe the difference between a prince and a regular djinn is the 3 wishes versus 1.
Do they normally cast
Right.
one?
No, they don't normally have the ability to cast wishes. But I'm saying, like, maybe in, say, a higher magic setting, the genie's difference between a regular genie and a prince or a royalty genie is the difference between 3 genies, or you each get 1 wish, to your party gets 1 wish and 1 wish only, and that's all I can do.
And also, other than the Dao, the Jinn are chaotic good, so they do have the good bent. Yeah, it's could be turned against you, but they're not evil. Like, if you rub the lamp, they're gonna hopefully help you.
I mean, that's kind of my thought as well. So of all of the genies, Jinn are actually the best natured in that sense. Like you said, they're chaotic good. So, on the subject of wishing, and in this case with the Jinn, all genies try whenever you use a wish spell, they try to bend that spell in some way that it benefits them. They will grant you that wish, but if they can twist the way that you word that wish, they'll make it to their benefit as much as possible. Now, in the case of a Jinn, they're the most likely that are going to actually, like, if they twist it to their favor, it's probably not going to be in a way that makes life as terrible for you as if you do it with, say, a Dao, like we said, who's probably going to make life a lot worse for you. One of the things I also like about Jinn, just on a side note, because they're all elemental based, my favorite thing about them is they fight with a scimitar and they have lightning. So you get hit with the scimitar and you're like, ow, it hurt because it slashed me. And then you're like, ow, it zapped me too.
Yeah.
I imagine one could try and pass off in a world as, say, a god of partying. Say, like, what's the Greek god of partying?
Partying?
Oh, Dionysus?
Yes. Because of the ability that Jinn have with the create food and water spell, they can create food and wine instead.
Nice.
That is a slight ability. So I could see them trying to pass off as like a god of parties or of wines. And
Sure.
so I kind of like that idea that, like, maybe, just maybe, that the gods weren't really gods. They were just D&D monsters.
I've thought about that too. Like, with these 4 elementals, they're just gods of a homebrew world or something along those lines. Yeah, they're challenge rating 11, all 4 of them, but that's still a lot for lower level characters. So, yeah, they can be seen as gods.
Well, then that gives another idea that you could, even in a situation, have in your campaign either the entire world or a section of the world where, yeah, you could have like 4 genies that are like these 4 different gods to you. So in this case, they could see a Jinn and they're like, oh, this is like the god of like thunder and lightning and parties.
Yeah.
Because, you know, they have like these festive banquets and they have this very elaborate and decorative palace, and they're like, we're going to serve you the best food and wine, and then they just make it appear in front of you just at the flick of a wrist.
Yep.
I think the one thing that I'd probably change with these genies is the languages that they speak. Just because they're, in the monster manual, they're very focused on, okay, well, a Jinn speaks Oran, a
Dao speaks Terran.
yeah, exactly. I would allow it that they speak all of Primordial.
Yeah.
That maybe they have some sort of understanding, maybe not entirely fluent. The way I do it is with Primordial. If your character knows Primordial, you pick one. That is the one you speak. You can understand the rest. You can only speak the one.
Gotcha.
Unless you obviously learn how to speak or write the others.
Now, on the subject of the genies, though, they also know tongues. So they can just cast tongues and just communicate with anyone however they want.
That is
So normally, if they're talking with someone, they can just talk in, you know, just their language. Say, for example, if they're on their native plane. But assuming they're not being in, like, an anti-magic field or something, and they're just free to do what they want with their powers, they can communicate to everyone if they need to.
Yeah, that makes sense.
In a short capacity, but they still can do it.
Be interesting to see what a genie does in an anti-magic field, because
Cease to exist.
In the case of a genie, it just, or in the case of a Jinn, it just starts speaking wind.
All right.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Can you speak louder? Your voice is like a very soft breeze, and now it's getting a lot.
I imagine that like
louder.
a Djinns would be sound like a thunderstorm if they're angry.
Oh yeah.
Like it sounds.
Oh,
like,
when they're very quiet and peaceful, yeah, it sounds like
Yeah.
very like airy and like breezy and like very like just very like nice and calming. And then when they get like angry, then it starts like booming, thunderous sounds.
we're
you're like-
inside. How is it raining?
You're like, calm down, and then the castometer, and you're like, turn it off.
How would you guys use it mechanically? Use a Djinn mechanically in your world.
An idea that I've had for a Djinn in particular would be for it to probably be with like a group of like cloud giants or something, and they have like a cloud castle, so it's basically just a flying fortress essentially. And my idea would be that the Djinn that lives on it is almost like a sort of like an ambassador or like advisor to these cloud giants. So it's not necessarily in charge, but it's something that those giants very much respect because he is like this very powerful being of an element that they're kind of descended from in a sense.
Okay.
And I could also see them, because they're chaotic good, another way that you could use them. We don't talk about this that often, but in the idea of like an evil campaign, so you have a party full of a bunch of evil characters, because they are chaotic good, say it runs into the party, and it sort of like offers up this idea of, oh, I will like help or like do wishes or whatever, and then because it's chaotic, it kind of messes things up and puts them in a situation where that evil party is like, oh, we don't really want this guy around anymore because he's actually trying to stop us.
Ooh. Oh, okay. I see. It's like
Yeah.
he's actively, secretly trying to
Yeah.
bend it.
Say
to
you're
where-
in a fight and like he accidentally pushes one of the party members off of a cliff.
Sorry, I didn't realize my whirlwind would throw you
Right,
15
but
feet from
I
the
did
cliffside.
stop that angel from hitting you though, so
Yes.
you're welcome.
Yeah, I could see that. One of my ideas was, so the Aarakocra as a tribe, they have the ability to summon wind elementals. So instead of summoning a wind elemental, they summon a Djinn when in dire need, like they have some additional items or relics.
Say when a blue dragon is destroying their home.
Yeah, then they would try or summon a Djinn, asking, either for wishes or for just granting some help towards their tribe in order to just let them survive a little longer.
Yeah.
Or maybe even the Aarakocra go for the wish of, hey, can we live for another 30 years?
I was gonna say it would be interesting to see an Aarakocra try and do this and be greedy about it.
Yeah.
Because if I remember, Aarakocra are pretty greedy as well.
I will sacrifice my life, maybe, if you grant the rest of my tribe 30 additional years of life.
Yeah.
Oh, let's go with the opposite. I will sacrifice my tribe for 30 additional years of life.
I like this. I actually just thought about this, but like one of their variants is like disguises. So like this genie just shows up in different forms to the party, like every other level, like as a different NPC, and just outdupes them like in every other way. Like there's a fighter who's just, he comes up, I'm better than you, in every way. Or I'm a sorcerer, I'm better than you in every single way. And just helps the party, but outdoes them and makes their ego go down a little bit as they're leveling, because they get confidence.
So like a rival from Pokemon.
Exactly. He's Gary.
I'm seeing that a little
Hello,
different.
my name is Gary.
I'm seeing that a little different then, because the way you were at first describing it, it sounded like, okay, you're always going to bring this overpowered character every time that there's a party, like they go and fight a monster or a boss or something, and then just outdo them. After a while, I feel like the party would be like, well then, you go do it.
I know, but he'll leave and then go turn into someone else and then show up again. So there's always that.
Oh, he's
upper
not
hand.
appearing as a Djinn.
No, he's peering at
Oh,
someone else.
okay.
Because he can.
Yeah.
It's the disguise, so they can turn into whatever they want.
The only worry I would have about this, and you would have to play it carefully, is you're taking away from your player's agency. Because if you do it constantly, like every other battle or so often, then the players, I imagine, wouldn't want to continue adventuring. They'd be like, well, then let's just get the gold from these guys and retire.
But then there's also the fact that you guys are going to show up and, like, there's people that you're going to find, NPCs that are higher level than you. Like, and they're going to help you. But then this one, yeah, specifically just to outdo the party or a specific member in the party, just to boost their, like, not boost their confidence, but lower it.
Yeah, it's an ego check. I get it.
Yeah, it's an ego check.
I just worry.
Or maybe it's just that one time where you guys are just so confident in yourselves that it's just like, I'm gonna throw this at them. They don't know, how it's gonna go. But
I wouldn't mind the more ideas to where they stay more in the sidelines and like from the shadows, literally mess with their battles as they go.
Yeah,
just constantly just tricking them, or like if they wronged the genie at one point. And he just decided to screw with them the entire time.
I can see that, because it's kind of like the idea like, oh, I will use my third wish to set you free from your internal prison, and then they don't.
Yeah.
Then they could be like, okay, cool. Well, I don't have a current master, because you guys already used up all 3 of your wishes. I'm going to mess with you guys as much as I can.
Right.
But I'm going to still help the greater good.
I was just trying to figure out, like, how to use it in a more chaotic bent, like, other than just help the party.
I like the way of twisting words, like the accidental saying of "I wish you guys would just be quiet," and then
I've always hated the fear of that when it comes to genies. Like, don't say the phrase anywhere near a genie.
Yeah,
you might just end up really hating it.
You say "I wish" and they all start leaning in with their ears cupped, and they're like, "Go on." So on the
flip side,
mechanic subject of Djinns, so one of the other nice things about them, if you look at their spells, so unlike what we were saying with the Dao, a lot of their spells aren't necessarily combat useful. A lot of them are more utility or travel or moving around. So kind of similar to the subjects of both helping the party or hindering the party, they can travel really quickly because they have things like wind walk, they have gaseous form, and so they can use those to kind of move around really quick. They can move an entire party like just literally as wisps of clouds, and can move them around really quick. So they could be like, "We wish for you to take us to such and such location," and the Djinn can go, "Oh, okay." Doesn't even have to use the wish spell; just takes them.
Yeah.
But as little clouds. And then on the same subject with if they were trying to hinder a party in some way, they could fly in, cause some mayhem, and then just fly out. They don't necessarily want to stay and fight per se. Yeah. And then they have a bit of battlefield control as well. So they have...
It seems like a lot of the spells that the genies have are kind of either utilitarian or they're very battle manipulation. Battlefield manipulation.
Yeah.
Not necessarily like, oh, I'm going to throw a fireball, as far as the Ifrit. They have a minor ability where they can do that, but it's not like their main go-to as far as spell focus.
Yeah.
Right.
As far as their battlefield control, they do have Create Whirlwind, so where they, as the name implies, create a whirlwind, which basically can trap characters for a period of time, and to get out of it, they do need a rather high strength saving throw. So a lot of the time, parties tend to favor dex and speed.
Yeah.
So this is an instance where a Djinn can get a battle in its favor by using that whirlwind to get the players that don't use strength, and then the characters with strength, that's a lot easier for them to beat.
Then again, he could do that and just have the barbarian suddenly pop out of the whirlwind and get screw him over.
Yeah, this is a time where all your strength-based fighters would definitely shine.
All right, let's transition over to the lawful evil genie, the Afridi. Unlike the Djinn and the Dao, this one is the fire elemental. What's different?
They are lawful evil, kind of like the Dao, except they seem to be more for themselves or the betterment of themselves rather than for, say, their own people. Whereas the Dao would kind of work together in their city, I can see the Ifrit working out for themselves or maybe their direct higher up or direct family relations. These are also the opposite side of wishes. The two typical genies that you would see granting wishes would be the Jinn and then the Ifrit, or Ifriti. The Ifriti are the ones, the monkey's paw, where they do everything they can to warp and twist or either your words, the way you say a wish. These are the reason why why there are lawyer players that have 3-page documents of how this wish is supposed to go out.
Look at the fine print.
Yeah.
So in other words, ignorant characters beware. You'll get screwed by this genie.
Yeah, definitely don't let your stereotypical barbarian, ask a wish. But then again, those are also the most fun, is trying to recuperate after said wish. But they're pretty awesome as far as they can throw canned fireballs. And it's kind of like what's that meteor spell? The minute meteors.
Oh, minute.
Meteors.
Minute meteors.
Yeah.
I see it kind of like that. It's a normal attack, which is pretty cool.
Yeah.
But then it has a very range of combative spells too. Their spells aren't very utilitarian or defensive. They're very more aggressive or, protect myself kind of deals, like invisibility or plane shift. I'm low on health. I'm gonna get the heck out of there.
Right.
But there again, there's also all the other genies have plane shift too. So
Yeah, I mean, I'm looking at their spells, but their only at will is detect magic, whereas everyone else that we've gone over, and we'll go over another one, has different like stone shape or even like attack spells like Thunderwave. So I don't know.
they seem more martial.
Yeah, definitely martial. And yeah, it's just.
It would have been kind of interesting if they got branding smite at will.
That would be cool.
I would probably.
I wouldn't mind seeing something. It would make sense.
Yeah, I would probably not canon that, homebrew that into a Jinn.
Yeah.
Or
Definitely be
genie.
terrifying to come hand to hand with it.
Well, if you do check the Afridi's combat, so they have, like you said, they either have mini fireballs or in the book it's a hurl flame, which is a spell attack. Technically, it is a ranged spell attack. It's against a single target, and on a hit, does 5d6 fire damage, and they can do it twice per turn. Or alternatively, their default weapon of choice is a scimitar, which does its regular scimitar damage, but automatically deals an additional 2d6 fire damage.
Oh, so it already does.
It does kind of already have a bit of like a built-in, so to say, smite effect to it.
Right.
Which is great because it's got the martial and it's got the ranged.
Yeah, so they have a lot of versatility for combat, and both of them do more or less around the same damage. It's Hurl Flame is actually stronger by the numbers.
I would say that Scimitar is stronger because you're guaranteed the 56 is automatically a 6.
Oh,
Plus the 7.
yes, you're right.
I'm like, it's
I didn't read
guaranteed
that
6 because of its strength. Its strength has a +6 to its, which also brings to mind that it helps add to the fact that these are very martial characters. They're very strong, very constitutional. They have a high constitution rather.
Very constitutional.
Yeah. We the people, out for the people, shall
They're
slay
making
the
contracts. Making contracts.
people. Yeah, I could kind of see these working in tandem with devils in order to either secure contracts or to create contracts with, say, lords of the prime material plane. I do see them very like, hey, this devil is going to send you a genie, but it sends you an Ifrit it'll grant your first wish to your wish, but then the other two, after you get sucked in, kind of like it'll suck you in with this first wish that you are now in a binding contract. You have 2 more wishes. So I don't know. I can see a lot of narrative, like storyline games, and then there's also the magic item Ifriti in a bottle, which is another genie in a bottle, or
Right.
yeah.
Now you're saying you could see it. Now, how's everyone thought about using one or used one in their campaigns? I know we've come across one. Dan, you want to talk about that?
You did. You came across it in my campaign. So one of the things that in the case with the Afridi that I did was I looked at the Afridi bottle, and my first thought was, oh, that's kind of cool, but I don't just want to give away that that's what it is. So it was, I combined it with Ever-Smoking bottle. And one of the characters bought it at an auction, not knowing what it was. They just thought it was an Ever-Smoking bottle. The people that were selling it thought it was an Ever-Smoking bottle. And so then, fast forward a few sessions later, the party was going into a werewolf den with a order of some paladins. And during the fight, the individual that had the Ever-Smoking bottle, his name was Kelvor, he was a fighter. He decided in order to kind of help the fight, to kind of give some confusion so the werewolves weren't quite sure what was coming for them, decided to open the Ever-Smoking bottle, which did do what he wanted, which was fill the entire cavern with smoke. Unfortunately, what he was not aware of is there was an Afridi trapped inside the Ever-Smoking bottle, and upon him opening it, freed itself.
And then betrayed the party at some point.
That was later. So, and this is a good idea, is because they, like you said earlier, Daniel, they're very much out for themselves. Mm-hmm. So, in the case of this Afridi, his name was Fierno. He knew that his goal was to be free of this, like, trap. Essentially, he was connected to the Ever-Smoking bottle, and he couldn't get away from it. Like, he couldn't actually physically move away from it as long as it existed. So when he was freed, being that he was a very sort of fiery, passionate individual, sort of commanded the people that freed him, in this case Kelvor, to break the bottle. And in doing so, the Afridi promised that it would basically restore his powers. What he didn't mention was it also meant that the Afridi would be able to do as it wanted, which he wasn't particularly keen on the idea of enslavement and didn't really want to owe anything to Kelvor, and then later betrayed the party during a boss fight, actually, which was funny because he was end up more dangerous than the actual boss itself during the fight.
Alright, how about anyone else? Does anyone else have plans for theirs?
The only thing I can really think of to use it as my own is sort of the Wishmaster movie series, Wishmaster 2. The premise with the Wishmaster series is that it's a genie in a ruby. And when you touch the ruby, you gain the 3 wishes. After you have the 3 wishes, it's a very persuasive genie. It's like, you have 3 wishes. Make your wishes. What do you wish for? And the more that you don't wish, it taunts you by destroying that around you. So, and you've got to be careful with these wishes too, because with the wishes, there are 2 ways to get out of this contract. One is you trap the genie back in the ruby, but you can't say, I wish you're back in the ruby, because it's kind of, at least for the movies, it was very lame. But I don't know how that would work in the game. But anyways, so you either trap it back in the ruby itself, or it kills you. And if it kills you, then it is free from it, and it will go on to the next user, like the next person who picks it up. Its ultimate goal is to get a user, very much like Genie from Aladdin, to wish it free from its prison. And that's like, the more you use it, the more it taunts you, and it's more like, use your 3rd wish. Wish me free. I will grant you all the power I can. So it's kind of almost like a patron, like a warlock patron, where you got these 3 wishes, unimaginable power, but be careful what you wish for, because it will try and kill you. And that's the other thing, is if someone takes the ruby, they get 3 wishes too, but it doesn't add back. If you get the ruby back, you still have 3 wishes. It's like 3 wishes per person who touches it. It's a weird movie. It's very gore, rated R for our younger listeners. So don't go on looking and reading it or watching it without parental permission. But it was a very good premise for like how I would use it.
How to use it. Really hot-headed genie.
Yep. So let's move on to our final genie, the water god sailor. I'm just kidding. No, they are the water genies. They are the married. Now,
they're last but not least, especially with the hit points. They're the highest hit points out of everyone. So, as Daniel said, they come from the water plane, and they have definitely different spells or definitely different attacks. This one wields a trident. This one looks more like a fish-like. I would
Like
say
a very
eel.
fat fish human.
Yeah.
It makes me think of like King Zora from Ocarina of Time.
Yeah.
Yeah, like just, but you know that image shouldn't.
limit you.
Yeah, you should always look at these creatures and think to yourself, "Oh, these things are scary." These ones are chaotic neutral,
Yeah, chaotic neutral.
so they're kind of very just do whatever they want, very on a whim.
Yeah.
You really don't know what a Merit's gonna do when you run into one.
Makes sense. Water.
Could be helpful. It could be harmful.
Yep.
I also like that these are probably the only ones that I've noticed that don't have a immunity. They have multiple resistances, both to acid, cold, and lightning damage.
Yeah. That makes sense.
Personally, I would probably do either cold or acid immunity. So in jumping ahead to a story, we ran across one that was pirating a quote-unquote ghost ship. And like in that scenario where they sail on the high seas, I would probably give it cold immunity rather than resistances to all 3 damage.
Mm-hmm.
Like if you see one on the Arctic, I would definitely give it.
Yeah. I mean, that'd be dependent on where it's from, I suppose.
Yeah. I could see this. So an idea I have is I would probably use this creature as a god to the Koatoa. Like where they worshipped random creatures and like that. I would use the Koatoa and basically it's like, oh crap, there's a bunch of little miniature fish-like people that worship me. Yeah, I'm gonna sit back and relax, and then it'll go and find treasures at the bottom of the lake, or from random adventuring parties of Drow, Durgar, or PCs.
I let you say that. I'm thinking like, okay, so, all right, Magmin for the Ifriti, or like, what would worship these kind of creatures, like, other than humanoids?
Koatoa, I could see them working in tandem with an aboleth, more as a mutual agreement. At least until the aboleth sees that it's no longer useful.
Yeah, it just vamps back to the water plane.
So the Sohagans?
Sohagans?
I was thinking Sawagan. What about the
Marrow?
The Marrow?
Marrow, the like evil mermaids.
Yeah.
So, once again in my campaign, this is a different one that AJ is a part of, not Daniel or Jacob, where they had similarly, and you can see a common theme, which is I like putting genies in different types of items, is they found a decanter of endless water, and when they opened it, a Marin popped out, in addition to a bunch of water. And Luthon was a Merid that, kind of similar to the other one that I described with Fierno, had a goal of kind of being free, but he wasn't necessarily connected to the decanter, he was just trapped inside it. Once he was freed, he could do whatever he wanted. But he was a bit of an honest soul, and he was like, in return for freeing me, I'll journey with you for a while, help you out, do what I can. And the way that he sounded was always just very charlatan-like, because everything he said just sounded like he was either trying to charm you or sweet talk you, and at no point I think did any single character in my campaign actually trust this thing.
Yeah, no.
They were just always expecting him to do something wrong, and there was even a part near the end where AJ's character Akros said to the said to Luthon, I need you to go help me try to find my ship. And Luthon was like, alright, sounds good, and left. And Andrew then proceeded to think to himself, I don't think I'm ever going to see him again, or my ship, and just assumed that it was going to go terribly wrong from that point forward.
We did cross paths with him once more, but...
You did. You found him, and he was actually true to his word.
Yep.
He was in the process of trying to get the ship back. The party happened to get to the ship at the same time that he did. But...
As you said, he's pretty honest.
Yeah, up to that
As
point
to-
he had been pretty honest. He hadn't necessarily done anything that made the party question him. They just, from what they knew of Marids, were very doubting to his trustworthy nature.
Right.
I like the idea. I know this that the elemental monk isn't really a high class, like a higher played subclass.
Yeah.
But using these genies as obviously not the princess, so they don't grant wishes, but kind of a dojo, sensei, where they are like the leaders and they teach new abilities to these monks as they visit the various dojos.
Okay.
I kind of like that where, the Ifriti is probably evil, so he's probably going to be a very harsh teacher, but you're going to learn.
So you know what you're making me think of?
Avatar?
Yeah.
Yeah. That was the other.
Absolutely.
Well, I mean, it's hard to say anything that's regarding the elemental monk without saying, or Way of the Four Elemental monk,
Yeah.
without regarding Avatar.
True. See, my thought possibility was, I don't know exactly how connected Genasi is to a genie. All I know is that there's some form of descendant.
Yeah.
Yes.
So, what I kind of think of, it would be interesting if the genies were intentionally making Genasis, or had descendant Genasis that they intend to use or manipulate for their own benefit.
Genasi sleeper agents. I like it.
Well, like I had in my campaign, the genie, that was one of my players' grandfathers. So, like, he slept with a human.
Right.
And then his son was a Genasi, and then so on and so forth.
Right.
So,
Having, like, a close relative to your genie is interesting,
yeah.
because it can always do at least something, as far as story-wise.
Yeah.
Also, I mean, these creatures are powerful enough that one day, 4 of them show up in the Prime Material Plane at the same time, and now they're trying to take over various parts of the world, basically turning it into a similar version.
As Avatar?
Yeah, more
Everybody.
Yeah, version of Avatar where like this kingdom is mine as the Dao, and it's going to be an Earth kingdom. And maybe, I mean, you could essentially make it so that these were the four gods that started the elemental paths. for
Either that or
Avatar.
the giants.
I see them as giant pets, like pets to giants.
Oh, well, yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Genies as pets to giants?
Either way, that's what I'm saying. Instead of maybe the genies, maybe the giants started this world too, and the genies are just around.
Well, we haven't even touched base on the fact that wouldn't they not like each other? They would be warring
Yeah.
Well, exactly.
through the world. So it's chaos, elemental chaos in that fact. So
Unless they find a perfectly means border, but
yeah,
unlikely.
that would be a great storyline.
Yeah, don't
Living in a
cross
world-
my territory, and I won't attack you with all the earth that you've put your cities on.
I like it. Yeah, living in a world that's full of borders, you're constantly set out to war to fight other genies.
Yeah.
With sleeper genasi agents.
Yeah, I was gonna say Genasi would be a very, very common race
Oh, yeah.
in this world.
All the players must be Genasi of some sort.
I wouldn't say all of them. I'd say like human, elf, and dwarf would be a lot less common than they used to.
Sea elf, Triton.
Well,
No.
the other part you'd have to think about with that then is you would have situations where if you are a Genasi, depending on where you are in the world at that time, you're going to be judged differently based on which kind of Genasi you are.
Yeah.
That's true.
You know, you're a fire Genasi.
And
Sure, you're in the fire area. Everything's fine and dandy. You're basically like one of the upper class kind of citizens. And then as soon as you step into a water kingdom, they're going to hate your guts.
Yeah.
Again, Avatar.
Yeah.
If you
But
haven't
worse.
seen Avatar, please go see it. It's a great show. You don't have to watch Legend of Korra, but I would recommend it as well. It kind of gives ideas to maybe modernize some of D&D
Yeah.
and kind of incorporate that into it. But
Definitely be interesting. Like a lot of magics tend to eventually erode away down to just the base element spells, and that's what a lot of spellcasters would be using.
Yeah.
yeah,
And depending on how the world fits, religious powers would also diminish as well.
exactly.
And let's make life a little interesting for us.
Okay.
So we've talked about the 4. So I say that, in your opinion, based on whatever criteria you want, how would you rate these guys from best to least?
Ooh, boy.
Best to least in what standard?
Whatever criteria you want to use.
I mean,
you
the
decide
wishes-
that yourself.
The wishes are just
The
powerful.
wishes alone are just based off of princes.
Yeah.
So it could be any genie and be a prince and
But-
grant wishes.
Based on the fact that I have met a married and worked with the married, I think that's my favorite. But then, I mean, you got to go with the classic genie, and then the Tao, and then the Afridi. I don't know if I like the Afridi as much as the others.
I like the Afridi, but that's just
What
me.
would be your order, Jake?
Boy. It would probably be. It's. See, I have a tie between Ifriti and the Jin.
Okay.
So it'd be one of those two, then the Tao, and then the Medrid.
The married.
Merid.
Daniel.
I grew up with Aladdin.
Yeah.
I've got to pick. If I don't pick Jin as my top favorite, just in general, I would regret it later.
See, I personally, I like the style of Jafar in the Genie. It's probably why I kind of have a tie between the two. I like,
Yeah, that's true.
but I'm the one that likes the more intense styles anyway. So I tend to lean toward that.
My order would be Jin, Tao, Ifriti, and then the married. Yeah, no particular reason, just how I would see them, how I like them.
To the man that posed the question.
Well, I'll show some Tao love because I like the idea of Tao, and as we looked this up, I'm really excited for my ideas of how I'm going to use them. Because I like the idea of manipulating terrain in the middle of a combat and ruining everyone's. That was a great idea that we had. After that, I think I would have to say my next favorite one was the Afridi because having Fierno was just very fun to play as. Next would be the Merid because Luthon was also pretty fun, and I actually think I'll put Jin last, but that's because I just haven't used one yet, and it hasn't quite warmed up in my heart.
That's interesting. Everyone has a first in a different category here.
They are all clearly, in their own respects,
Dangerous.
definitely dangerous, powerful creatures that should
Absolutely.
always be respected and feared.
I think we should find our own genies and make a few wishes. Thanks for listening, and until next time.
Thank you for staying at the Bardic Inn. If you would like to hear more, we will be uploading new content Thursdays at noon PST on
iTunes, YouTube, Castbox, and Podbean.
If you have any recommendations on future content, you can leave a comment on these various platforms, or you can contact us on Twitter at the Bardic Inn, or on Facebook at facebook.com/BardicInn.
We're your local bards.
Daniel.
Andrew.
Then,
And Jake.
be inspired.